let's play rock, paper, scissors to decide who gets to choose what we will be doing today. I suggested and others nodded their head in agreement. Grayson, Derek, Luna, Danielle, Liam and I were all friends since childhood as we lived in the same neighborhood. Our parents also knew that we used to hang out together and were comfortable with the fact that they always knew that we were either at one of our houses or the other. Anyway, as we played rock, paper, scissors, it was Luna who lost, and we knew that she was going to choose. All of us were huge Nintendo fans and loved playing Mario games, but Luna was obsessed with Mario Kart series. And as expected, she chose Mario Kart, and not only that, but she chose that we play the game in the cafe that was near the elementary school. Well, we did not have any problem with that, so we followed her command to the cafe. As we were playing Mario Kart in the cafe, we saw a grown man dressed up in a Luigi costume playing Mario Kart. He looked weird, but had the highest score in the game. We went on to focus on our games, but no matter how hard we tried, none of us were able to get a high score. That was when we heard a snickering sound and turned to see that it was the Luigi man who was laughing at us. "What's so funny, old man? Did your Luigi costume get stuck to you?" It was Derek who said in a very sarcastic tone, which made the rest of us laugh. "No, kid. I was thinking that you would never be able to set a high score this way," he said with a cringe-worthy smile on his face. "What do you mean? We won't be able to set the score?" Liam said. He sounded pissed by the man, so I held his hand to calm him. "Well, you know it too, that you have been trying so hard and still haven't managed to set the score. There are tricks for that, which I'm willing to teach you in this case." He said that while scratching his head, which made him look even weirder, but I guess not everyone was thinking the same as me. "And what is that?" Luna asked with a curious voice. In response, he looked at her and gave the same cringe-worthy smile. "How about you play real-life Mario Kart with me?" Bent a bit to match her heights and said, "Real-life Mario Kart? What's that?" It was Grayson who finally spoke after being silent the entire time, and asked, "I have a place where you can play a real Mario Kart," he said with the same smile on his face. I don't know why no one else could tell, but it looked freaky, and the guy also looked shady as hell. To my surprise, Daniel, Liam, Luna, and Grayson agreed to it first. It was only Derek and me who thought it was a bad idea. Before leaving, the guy told us to wear Mario Kart costumes if we wanted to play a real-life Mario Kart. After that, we walked back to our houses while discussing the game. I could not believe no one was talking about that guy, and how weirder it was for him to ask us to play the game. "Are you guys going tomorrow to that abandoned playground the guy asked us to go to?" I asked as the others looked at me. "Of course we are, and you're going to come with us." As expected, it was Luna. "Sorry guys, but I don't think it's such a good idea to follow some stranger's advice," I said, and Derek supported me in this. "No arguments over it, Ryan and Derek. You know Luna would go either way, whether we agreed or not, and we cannot let her go alone, so all of us will be going together," Daniel said with a commanding voice, and we all nodded our heads. Daniel was the oldest among us, so we agreed to do whatever he said. Still, he was a pretty nice guy who always thought about everyone in the group. The next day, we met up in front of Daniel's house. Everyone had managed to prepare and wear the Mario Kart's costumes. Derek was wearing a Yoshi costume, which he had from last year's Halloween party. And Liam and Grayson were both wearing Luigi costumes since it was both of their favorites. Luna thought of something different, and she dressed up as Daisy. And she looked cute in that. Only Daniel and I were the ones who did not wear any costume, which made Luna pissed more than the others. I don't know why Daniel did not wear it, but I thought it was childish to dress up as a game character. We headed over to the playground, which was on the outskirts of town, and as we reached, we met the guy waiting for just outside, wearing the same Luigi costume with the same cringy smile on his face. He looked at others wearing costumes and his smile got bigger and bigger. But as he laid his eyes on me and Daniel, he frowned and asked, "Why aren't you two in costumes as I asked you to be?" "We don't have any costumes with us," Daniel said in response for the both of us. He continued frowning for a few minutes, but then said that it would be okay. After that, he led us inside, and there we saw a complete setup for Mario Kart with vehicles for kids decorated to make it look like similar to the ones in the game. He explained the rules to us and then started the race. It was way more fun to play this way than I imagined. All of us were busy playing the game and having fun that we did not notice when Derek disappeared. Daniel was the first one to take notice that Derek was nowhere to be seen, and that's when we asked the guy about it. He shrugged his shoulders, saying that he did not know. I could tell by Daniel's expression that he was also thinking that something was wrong, but the others continued to play. That was when Luna said that she needed to go to the restroom and left for it. We noticed that a minute later, the man was also gone. Daniel stopped everyone from playing and asked us to be ready to leave, and went over to find Luna. After about 10 minutes, we saw Luna come running towards us while screaming and looking all terrified. Daniel told me to run. That man is psycho and he caught him. She said, while running, we saw the guy chasing her, so we started running as well. The man kept chasing us the entire time, and that was when we spotted a police car and stopped it. The two officers came out and asked us what was going on, and as we told them everything, the officers looked around, but it seemed that the man had hidden somewhere. We told the officers about Derek and Daniel being held up somewhere by that man, and they promised to look for them. After dropping us home, the officers discussed something with their parents and left. Hours passed, and there were still no signs of Derek and Daniel. My parents told me that the police were still looking for them, and that they would find them sooner. The next evening, the police informed the parents that they had found the bodies of the young boys brutally murdered, and the bodies were hidden under a slide of the playground. The parents were called to identify the bodies to check if it was Derek and Daniel. And I guess it was, because the next day the funeral was held for them. We still don't know what happened that day when Daniel went after Luna, and she did not tell us either. Instead, she'd gone completely silent after that day. A few days later, I heard my parents talking to that man in the Luigi costume that was arrested. And indeed, he was a serial killer who often lured kids in and murdered them. I know it's bad and selfish of me to think that, but I thought that it was a relief that the rest of us had gone out of there as we did.
Hey guys, thanks so much for all the support. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please feel free to do so.
That day I had a bad headache and fever, so I slept for the entire day. And when I woke up, it was already evening time. The first thing I did was check my fever, and thankfully it had gone down. So I went over to the bathroom and washed off my fever sweat. And after that, I went directly to the kitchen, because I don't know about any of you, but I felt extremely hungry every time I got a fever. As I walked into the kitchen and opened up the fridge, there was a cake on the bottom shelf with a Mario Kart character on it, along with a note. I did not need to see the note to know whom it came from, but I started sweating after seeing that Yoshi's picture over it, which is a character from Mario. I immediately took out my phone and checked the date. At the moment I saw it, I started shaking. I could not believe that it was 29th of February. All of a sudden, memories from 8 years ago started to come back to me, along with all the horrible emotions. I was 13 years old, and it was the day I won the talent contest. My dad gifted me the console with Mario Kart on it. I was so happy because I wanted it so badly for so long and just kept asking my parents to buy it for me. And then finally I had it. My parents had organized a little party for me and then invited my friends over as well. Everything was great. Food, games, everything. But I was still super eager to play with my newly gotten console. So I sat on the couch and started playing the game while other kids enjoyed the party. "Hey kid, hold your breaths. We have another surprise for you." It was my mom who came and announced this with a big smile on her face. So out of curiosity, I focused my attention on it. That was when someone with the Bowser costume came in with a butterscotch with chocolate mix cake, my favorite. And it had the picture of one of my favorite characters on it, Yoshi. I jumped with excitement and went ahead to take the cake from that person's hand. But as I was about to grab it, that person pulled it away from me and said, "Not so fast, kiddo. Not until Bowser feels like it." It was a man's voice. My mom started laughing as she thought it was some kind of funny act, and the other kids started cheering and laughing too. But that wasn't the case with me. I was feeling embarrassed because not only was that guy not allowing me to touch my cake, but he also made everyone laugh at me. So I decided not to touch or eat that cake anymore, and I was pretty stubborn about it. I took my console and started playing with it. While playing the game, I glanced over to the side where the man was entertaining the other children every once in a while, and every single time I found him glaring in my direction. It wasn't like he had put the cake down so that someone else can eat. Instead, he was still holding it on, which made me feel very frustrated and angry at the guy. I could not believe him. It was my party, and I wasn't able to get what I wanted. I was feeling so grumpy that I was even rude to the kids who tried to approach me and play with me, which I still feel awful about. Anyway, I was sitting on the couch playing with the console, and then about an hour had passed or so since the guy had arrived. He suddenly stood up and asked others for their attention. I turned my head over towards him to see what other act he would perform, and his gaze was still on me. That was when he announced that it was the final cake cutting time and asked me to come over to cut the cake. Everyone started looking over in my direction, but I was still feeling humiliated from earlier and so pissed that I turned my attention to the console again, completely ignoring him. He called out for me again while awkwardly laughing, but I still did not respond. At this point, other kids started to call my name as well, just so that I can come over and cut the cake. But I told you earlier, I was pretty stubborn about not touching or eating the cake at the time. I was playing Mario Kart, completely ignoring them. I heard footsteps approaching me, so I turned my head over, only to meet my eyes with Bowser's eyes, which kind of freaked me out. He said with a pretty annoyed voice while gritting his teeth, "Cut the cake, kid." I looked into his eyes for a few moments, and then stood up and walked towards the other snacks. He knew that I ignored him, which I could tell that pissed him off. But he was still in my house, performing for my party, and my parents were here too. So there was nothing he could do about it. That's what I thought at the moment, at least, while stuffing some nachos in my mouth. The children started to get annoyed too, and a commotion started on its own while they started saying names to me. My parents heard the noises coming, and thinking something was wrong, they went downstairs to see what was going on. And as they got down, one of the kids told them that I was being rude and ignoring the cake cutting. I could not believe how everyone was making it look like it was my fault, while it was the fault of the guy who was wearing the Bowser costume. My anger went off the chart when my parents started to scold me in front of everyone while saying that I should apologize to the man and then cut the cake. I got so frustrated and angry that I walked to the guy and took the cake from his hands and threw it right into his face. Just a moment later, as I saw the man's eyes, I regretted doing that. His red eyes met with mine, which I instantly felt was filled with anger and so much malice in it. My parents immediately went to him and started apologizing while scolding me all together, but he was not saying anything. Instead, he just kept glaring at me. Mom felt that something was off with the man, and that he was angry and embarrassed, so she stomped on me and gave me one tight slap. "Is that how I taught you to behave with guests? Go to your room right now, young man, and reflect on your actions." After she scolded me, I started walking upstairs. I looked back to see my mom, who was handing him some cash, while the man just kept glaring at me. I felt a chill down my spine and ran over to my room in an instant. The same night, I woke up thirsty in my room, so I went to the kitchen. But when I opened the refrigerator, there was a cake which looked the same as the one that I threw in the guy's face. I took out the cake and cut it with a knife. Red liquid started to flow from the cake, which had a really weird smell. As I took out a piece of the cake, a finger fell on the floor, which was inside the cake. I freaked out and started screaming while my parents came to the kitchen as well. "What is it, honey?" It was my mom who came towards me while rubbing her eyes, and as she saw me curled up on the floor, she rushed over. The moment she saw the cake with the blood, she freaked out as well. But my dad was acting calm. He said it must be some kind of prank by one of the kids and then just threw it in the trash. Dad cleaned the floor and we all went upstairs. I found the note fallen near the refrigerator, which I picked up. After reaching my room, I unfolded the note and felt terror-stricken after reading it. It said, "You would receive this cake on this very date until the day you finally eat it. Signed, Bowser." Beating the high score. Hey man, good to see you. How are you doing these days? Who's Mason, the guy I've been friends with since elementary school. Ah, good to see you too. I'm good, bro. How about you? I replied. It was a typical normal greeting among each other after meeting for so long. It's not like we're not friends anymore, but it's more like we've gone from being best friends to being kind of friends. We'll only greet each other when they run into one another. So, about me and Mason, the reason we're like this is because of an incident that took place in middle school which scared us so much that whenever we run into each other, all the memories of the past come flooding in our minds. We have made a promise to each other that the day we overcome our trauma, we would start hanging out again, no matter how long it takes. We were in middle school, and it was right after the summer vacation ended that year when Mario Kart Wii was released and was trending like crazy. Now, none of us had the console to play the game in. It was just me and Mason who were best friends, but there were a total of 5 kids. Me, Mason, Theo, and Owen. The 4 of us had been friends forever. It was more like our parents were friends, and that's how we met in elementary school. We were inseparable and loved each other wholeheartedly. Anyway, we planned to ask our parents to buy us a console, and we'd keep asking until they would buy it. But the plan went down the drain, since none of them agreed to buy the console for us. So we decided to find a gaming cafe where we would be able to play the game within our budget. One day Mason, Owen, and I were strolling after school and waiting for Theo to join us after he was done cleaning up the classroom, which by the way was his punishment for skipping class. Mason, you and Theo are in the same class, right? So how did he end up getting caught? I asked. It was some stupid kid who told on him to the teacher, Mason replied while kicking a pebble. Even though the 4 of us were friends, Mason was closer to Theo than the rest of us, and it was because they lived next door to each other. Wow, Owen and I shared something similar as well since we were cousins. We waited almost half an hour until we saw Theo running in our direction, which made our faces light up. Theo had this aura to always keep up the environment with his weird and stupid jokes and his sense of humor. I'm telling you guys, they save money by making students clean in the name of punishment. The moment he caught up to us, he said while panting, I guess he ran from the school. Here, drink some and catch your breath for a few minutes, Owen said while passing the water bottle to Theo. Thanks, man. So, where are we heading to? Theo said while grabbing the bottle from Owen's hand. We'll just keep walking until we find the gaming cafe, I said. We continued our stroll after Theo stopped panting, and as we were walking, we spotted an old-looking cafe. There was a Nintendo sign drawn on the board, so we walked in to check it out. Our eyes went wider as we saw where all kinds of Mario games were, so we went ahead to the counter to ask for the price. And it was within our budget. The price was so low, and they charged hourly, so we decided to start paying for the Mario Kart Wii. The Mario Kart Wii setup was in the left row, so we went there and each of us took a seat. We noticed that there wasn't anyone else around the cafe except for a weird looking kid who was also playing Mario Kart Wii while dressed up as Mario. We ignored the kid and started playing the game. Now that we were playing it, it was so much fun. The gaming cafe was different. There was already a high score with the same name on each of our screens, and it looked quite unbeatable. Hey guys, how about we make a bet? Owen asked all of us all of a sudden as we were playing the game. We're listening, the rest of us said in a synchronized voice. Whichever of us beats the high score on the screen will get a pizza treat from the rest of us, he said while focusing on the game. And you think you're the one who's going to win, right? Theo said with a sarcastic tone. No, I don't think just that. I know that I will be the winner. Owen turned his head over towards him and said very confidently with a smile, Deal. We said it in sync again. After playing for 2 hours, we decided to head home, so we exited the cafe. We noticed the weird kid with Mario's costume was still there playing. From that day onwards, we started coming to the gaming cafe every single day after school to play Mario Kart. It was the 7th day of the week, and we were close to beating the high score, but for some reason, we were not able to do that. We continued playing for a little bit longer, hoping to beat the score on the screen. In your face, Owen. Look, I made a new high score. It was Theo, whom all of a sudden screamed with excitement. He looked at our screens, and it was him who was the top scorer on the screen. It was the first time I noticed the weird kid turning his head in our direction. I guess he must be the one who had the high score that Theo just beat. As promised, we went to his favorite pizza place and contributed into buying him the pizza that he wanted to eat. After that, we ended up having more fun than we imagined and then headed over to our homes. Another bet was made by Theo. Well, it was more like a challenge than any of us had to beat his high score. We could not beat that high score for the next 2 days. And on the third day, Theo did not show up to the cafe. And the high score on the screen was different. It was the weird kid again who had the high score on the screen. We did not pay much attention to it and continued playing the game. The next day, Mason told us that Theo had an argument with his parents and ran away from home. He'd been missing ever since. You know, it's weird. He did not come to any of our houses to stay the night, I said. We all agreed because it was unlike him to do so. He used to have arguments, and whenever he did, he'd always end up spending the night at either one of our houses. And then after that, he'd go home on his own and make up with his parents. So we were a bit worried about him this time. We did not go to the gaming cafe the next few days because there was still no word from Theo. His parents filed a missing person report, and we also helped look around the area for him. But he was nowhere to be found. We assumed that he may have gone to his uncle's house, which sometimes he used to, and since Theo's parents and his uncles were not on good terms, they may have not have called back asking about Theo. After 4 days, we went to the gaming cafe again and decided to beat the high score before Theo comes back, just so that this time it would be one of us bragging about the high score and then getting some pizza. It was Owen this time who beat the weird kid's score, and then managed to get a new high score on the screen. But since Theo wasn't there, he didn't seem too happy about it. He said he would get his pizza after Theo comes back and then just headed home right away. The next day, Owen did not show up to school either. So we got worried about him and went to his home to ask around. His parents told us that he never got back that day, and that they were thinking that he was with one of us. When we told them that Owen left on his own that day, they started getting worried. We searched every possible place that we could think of, but we couldn't find him either. It was exactly like when Theo went missing. That was when it clicked, that they both went missing after beating the high score of that weird kid. So we went there to confront him, and instead of denying it, he looked at us with a wicked smile on his face and said, "You guessed right. You should stop coming here as well, or you will end up dying just like your friends." The way he said that was so terrifying that we immediately ran from there. We decided to tell the cops about this, and when we went there with the officers, the weirdest thing happened, which made them think that we were messing around with the officers. There was no gaming cafe there. Instead, there was just an abandoned building with a broken Nintendo sign on it.